Howdy everybody, my name is Patrick Neff and I chose to do my um, topic today on robotics in schools from the Horizon Report K-12. Um, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what they mean by robotics, also how it can be implemented, some of my own experiences, and then a little bit about a study that points out some of the advantages of using robots in schools. Now to start with, the Horizon Report talks about using robotics, um, machines that are programmable or can be built physically. Um, and they talk about two different approaches. The first is pre-built robots for things like students with disabilities. One example they point out is autistic students learning communication through talking to a humanoid robot with basic responses that has a low stimulus so that it's less likely to um, cause problems for the students while they're learning these skills. Another important point they make is that robots are a perfect fit for maker spaces. Um, these spaces are designed for kids to be able to come in, work with their hands, build something, create something, and building robotics is a really good example of that. Um, they also talk about programming. With most robots, especially educational programs, the robots not only have to be physically built, they also have to be programmed. This teaches computational thinking, it teaches certain programming skills that will be useful in the real world, um, and it just teaches kids to think logically. And finally, there are some challenges. First of all, of course, robots are expensive. This is a cost to getting just the product in the classroom. Second of all, robots are complicated, and the teachers or other staff are going to need training before they can implement such programs. Moving on to some examples from my own classroom, I teach robotics. We use Vex Robotics. This robot here is an example of this year's competition. Students are given a set of limitations and a task to achieve and have to build a robot. This is a second example of a similar style of robot, but slightly different. You'll notice each of these can be built using modular parts. They are programmed by the students, and then they compete against other students at competitions throughout the year, all the way up through a world championship. Vex Robotics is just one example. Lego Mindstorms is another. First robotics competitions, which are often hosted by NASA, Best Robotics. There are a lot of different programs out there for students and educators to choose from. And I mentioned the programming. This down here is an example of Robot C, which is a derivative of the C programming language used to program these Vex robots. There are also versions that are drag and drop, which are you build the program from blocks of pre-written code. So there are different approaches. The pre-written code is more useful at the elementary level. As you get into middle and high school, we tend to move into this more in-depth programming. Now, I looked at an experimental study on the learning outcome of teaching elementary level children. They were using Lego Mindstorms in India, actually, and their conclusions were pretty straightforward. First of all, they did a summer program, and it was very successful in teaching both programming and problem solving skills. They did some studies, they looked at student feedback, and they found that students were very interested and engaged in this project. And as an example of their success, students actually went and competed in a regional tournament and succeeded. They won at the tournament and qualified to move on. So this is just one example. My own program, we have been competing at tournaments. I see the student engagement. I know this is anecdotal, but it's a huge program, and I'm seeing a lot of really good stuff out there. So this is just a quick example of what robotics in education might look like. It's already starting to come around, but we're still a few years out from it being really a universal thing. Here are my references for those who would like to look things up. Thank you for your time.